up the trees. You know, it was the way it moved. You know, it was like in steps.
And how long did you have to stay in the water for?
Overall, we were in the water for about easy an hour, but you know, it sort of felt a lot more.
Right. Okay. Not a great start to the new year, because just so happens that the entire country of Australia, I guess, is on fire. Like the whole country, which is a continent. And a lot of people are dying horribly, and countless animals and wildlife are also dying horribly. And almost every image of it is like a dagger right in your heart, especially since the scale is unimaginable, and the country's leaders are about as bad at handling it as any other world leader. And that whole climate change angle, a lot of doom. Terrible, horrible doom. Yeah, there it is, just the worst thing. And we'll probably have to do a larger video talking exclusively about Australia at some point that will likely be, you know, a real tale of rage and sadness. But hey, that first clip I showed you about the woman who jumped into a lake, she and her daughter were saved by a man on a jet ski. So that's neat. Some kind of an action film. Like the movie Hard Rain, but with a lot more dead koalas. Like if you stacked all the koala bodies killed in the wildfire in a straight line, there would be enough to reach Mount Everest twice. That's pretty impressive. Look, maybe the Australian wildfires aren't the best foot to start on for this new and constructive show, for this new and constructive year. I should have been more selective about what we're going to cover. That's on me, and I apologize. Is there any other news from the first day of January? Okay, wow. No one is having a good time in that headline. Any other January 1st news we can look at? That's just terrible. Okay, let's skip to the next. Okay, that's like the same headline as the last one, but also isn't, and that makes it more disturbing. And maybe we should have a conversation about guns and who gets to have guns. And like, maybe cops shouldn't have, no, none of that. We're going to skip to the next day, all right? Skip to January 2nd. Shucks. Skip that. Okay, no, not for the first episode back. All right, we'll find a constructive way to talk about that at some point, but not this point, all right? What else was happening on January 2nd? Fine. I can't keep re-rolling, so let's talk about the anti-Semitism. And there's some kind of nice news about how 10,000 people got together to protest this recent rise of anti-Semitic attacks right at the end of 2019. But also, this just in, there was a really sudden and horrible rise in anti-Semitic attacks right at the end of 2019. And what's worse is the entirety of 2019 as a whole also saw a giant rise in anti-Semitic attacks in New York City, from 186 incidents in 2018 to 234 the following year. But to be fair and balanced, hate crimes in general were up last year. Not just in New York, but everywhere. So that's very bad news. It's objectively all bad news. Not a lot of golden goodies to sift from these ashes. But oh, wait, here's a headline saying that hate crimes in general were down. But here's a more specific headline noting that violent hate crimes were up. So like, less hate crimes, but the hate crimes that were happening were worse. Specifically, murder was worse. So I guess, congratulations to the concept of hate crimes for becoming more streamlined. That does not feel like the right take. Okay. Also, these increased hate crimes are specifically targeting Latinos and transgender people, which might indicate that maybe someone, some kind of authority figure, perhaps in a role model position, leading a culture war, is influencing people toward that kind of hate crime. Look, I'm not exactly sure how to frame this in a way that's constructive and shows hope for 2020 and doesn't fill everyone's brains with gushing rage blood. And then you get the blood screams and tip over an airport kiosk in front of your entire family. So let's pivot to world news. Nope. That's just the same hate crimes. Skip, skip, skip. Different world news. What? No, we already did the fires. Jesus. Okay. Let's go back to the dead mountain lions. Phew. Ah. Whew. Yeah. What a sunny breath of fresh air that is. That's a nice, cushy story about slaughtered wildcats. So it turns out that the body they were eating wasn't a hiker they killed or anything like that. So that's good news. It was merely a dead body that someone else put there. After a murder, one assumes. Most likely this suspect they found. But maybe they died naturally and were then brought to the wilderness afterward. Like out of spite or something. We don't have to jump to the worst conclusions about the dead mountain lions that were found eating a corpse in the woods. And in other dead mountain lion news, the state of California is having a big problem with mountain lions that have been killed by accidentally ingesting rat poison that was introduced through the food chain. So there's a clear lesson there, something we can do better at, which is to avoid using poisons to kill pests in our home and just use those snapping traps instead of the ones that they break their neck, assuming they work properly, and don't just slowly strangle the rodent. Or maybe we can get one of those big buckets to drown them overnight. Drown mice. Also, if you're going to kill somebody, dump the body in a river or a sewer and avoid wildlife areas so lions don't eat the body and develop a lust for human flesh and are put down by the cops. Gun havers who maybe shouldn't have guns. Failing that, be sure to put the body in a steel drum or perhaps chopped up in some secure luggage if you absolutely have to dispose of it in the woods. Is what I guess is the growth we should strive for here. Or, if we're gonna poison mountain lions like villains, maybe we shouldn't also shoot them when they realize that we taste delicious. Even the odds a little bit, you know? Like sure, they found out our secret, the thing we've been keeping from dogs all these years, that humans are super easy to kill and very, very scrumptious. But I don't know, we're like really hurting the environment and poisoning them and all those koalas from before. So maybe it's time that the juggernauts of the woods lurch from the shadows and devour our species because man, okay, this isn't constructive either. This is tough. Okay. I'm going to figure this new show out, all right? We're just working out the kinks is all. What happened on January 3rd?
Iran is vowing revenge after U.S. drone strikes in Baghdad killed the country's top general, Qasem Soleimani.
Okay, let's just put a big fat pin in 2020 for a moment. We're going to shift gears. Get loose, you know? We're going to loosen ourselves up. And you know, I've been told that I've been doing this show since the previous year before this one. So maybe it could be fun to reflect on just how far we, and most specifically I, have come on this show. It's time for a new segment called Whatever the Year Was Before 2020, a look back. Working tirelessly like I do to bring you an endless stream of hot Kodion news action makes it difficult to stop and reflect on the stories we've covered in the past, something that one could argue is crucial in taking in the whole picture, to get perspective from a less emotionally invested point so that we could perhaps react better in the future when a similar story arises. For example, remember that Nick Sandman kid who allegedly rational adults wanted to smack when he stood in front of a Native American man in a MAGA hat while his buddies made racist chants? Now that we've had time to stop and reflect on that, and perhaps our own adolescent foibles, that video now looks... I'm so... Looks about the same. pretty frustrating to watch even after a year. But it's true that people, specifically Twitter and the media, absolutely did not handle that video well at all. And I'm certainly no